Hey there, friend, imagine you're scrolling late at night, heart heavy from another exhausting day, when this question hits you like a thunderclap. What if your boss, the one who holds your paycheck, your future, your entire world in her perfectly manicured hands, looked you dead in the eyes during a raging storm and whispered, "Tonight, treat me like a maid"? Would you freeze? Laugh nervously? Or lose control completely, the way Nathan Carter did on that unforgettable night in Savannah? Stick with me until the very last word, because this isn't just a story. It's a mirror. It's about the loneliness hiding behind every corner office, the quiet ache we all carry, and the single spark of kindness that can rewrite two broken lives forever. By the end, you might just see your own boss, your own struggles, and even yourself in a brand new light. Ready? Let's step into the rain together. The storm slammed against the old Savannah mansion like it had a personal grudge. Rain hammered the slate roof, wind howled through the live oaks, and inside the grand hallway, Nathan Carter stood dripping wet, toolbox in one calloused hand, flashlight in the other. At 38, Nathan was the kind of man everyone liked but nobody really saw, broad shoulders from years of fixing what others broke, gentle brown eyes that had watched his wife leave 3 years ago because maintenance men don't build empires, and a quiet faith that tomorrow might finally be kinder. He'd been the maintenance supervisor at Whitaker Enterprises for 8 years, keeping the company's buildings running while the real money flowed upstairs in marble-floored offices. Tonight, though, a frantic call had dragged him across town to the CEO's private residence, a burst pipe in the East Wing, water already flooding the antique Persian rugs. Grace Whitaker met him at the door herself, no assistant, no security, just her. She was 45, tall, elegant in a silk blouse that probably cost more than Nathan's truck, silver streaks in her dark hair that she refused to dye because time should show. But tonight those streaks looked less like power and more like exhaustion. Her green eyes, usually sharp enough to close million-dollar deals, were red-rimmed and hollow. "Mr. Carter," she said, voice barely above the thunder, "thank God you came. The water, it's everywhere." Nathan followed her through rooms that smelled of lemon polish and old money. Crystal chandeliers swayed like ghosts. He dropped to his knees in the flooded laundry room, wrenching the pipe back into place while Grace hovered, arms wrapped around herself as if the cold came from inside her bones. 20 minutes later the leak was sealed, but the mess remained, sopping towels, ruined silk pillows, and a silence heavier than the rain. Nathan wiped his forehead, expecting her to call a cleaning crew or dismiss him with a check. Instead, she stared at the wet floor and said the words that stopped his heart cold. "Leave the mop. Tonight. I want you to treat me like a maid." Nathan blinked, water still dripping from his sleeves. "Ma'am?" Grace's voice cracked. "You heard me. For one night, no titles. No MS Whitaker. No empire. Just, make me scrub. Make me sweat. Yell at me if I miss a spot. I'm begging you." Her hands trembled as she reached for a bucket. "I'm so tired of being the boss, Nathan. Everyone bows. Everyone fears me. But nobody sees me. Not really. Not since my father died and I turned his little diner into this machine that swallowed my soul." He lost control right there. Not in anger, but in a raw, disbelieving laugh that burst out of him like a dam breaking. "You're serious? You own half the city, fly first class to Paris on a whim, and now you want me, the guy who unclogs your toilets, to boss you around? Lady, I've got a daughter who needs braces and a mortgage that keeps me up at night. This isn't a game." His voice rose with every word, years of swallowed resentment spilling out. He'd watched her cut corners on employee benefits while she vacationed in the Bahamas. He'd fixed her broken elevator at 2 a.m. while she hosted charity galas downstairs. And now this? Humiliation wrapped in silk? Grace didn't flinch. She simply knelt, picked up a soggy towel, and began wringing it out with shaking hands. Tears mixed with the puddle at her knees. I know how it sounds. But please, just for tonight. Let me feel what it's like to be small again. To be useful. To be seen without the fear. Her shoulders shook. My father used to say the floor only gets clean when someone who loves you helps scrub it. I haven't had that in 20 years. Something in her voice, raw, desperate, human, snapped Nathan's anger in half. He stared at this powerful woman on her knees, and for the first time saw not the CEO who signed his paycheck, but a daughter who had buried her father's dreams under spreadsheets and stock options. His own chest tightened. He thought of his little girl waiting at home, of the lonely nights after his divorce, of how success had cost Grace everything that mattered. Slowly, almost against his will, he grabbed another mop. Fine, he muttered, voice thick. But if we're doing this, we do it right. No half measures. And you're gonna hear everything I've wanted to say for 8 years. They worked side by side for hours. Grace scrubbed baseboards until her manicure chipped. Nathan barked orders, harder on that corner. Elbow grease, not tears. But his tone softened with every shared laugh over a stubborn stain. Between buckets, words poured out. Grace confessed how building the empire had cost her a marriage, friends, even the ability to cry without calculating how it looked to investors. Nathan admitted he'd almost quit last year because the loneliness of raising his daughter alone felt heavier than any pipe he'd ever fixed. The storm outside raged on, but inside that flooded mansion, something warmer than heat began to glow, two strangers stripping away titles, one sudsy floor at a time. By dawn the room sparkled. Grace's designer blouse was ruined, her hair wild, her face flushed and alive for the first time in years. She looked at Nathan, eyes shining, and whispered, I lost control too tonight, and I think I just found myself again. The sun rose over Savannah like a promise neither of them had dared to believe. Grace stood in her now spotless kitchen, still wearing the same soaked blouse, and did something the boardroom version of her would have never allowed, she made coffee for Nathan. Real coffee, not the assistant-brewed kind. They sat at the scarred wooden table that had once belonged to her father's diner, and the real storm began, the one inside their hearts. Grace told him everything. How her dad had run a tiny 24-hour diner on the riverfront, serving grits and kindness to dock workers and dreamers alike. How she'd promised him on his deathbed to make it bigger, only to watch that promise twist into board meetings, layoffs, and a heart that forgot how to feel. I became the boss everyone needed, she said, voice breaking, but I stopped being the daughter he raised. Last night, scrubbing beside you. I remembered what it felt like to matter because of who I was, not what I owned. Nathan listened, really listened, the way no investor or assistant ever had. He shared his own scars, the wife who left because his love felt too ordinary, the daughter who asked why daddy's boss never smiled in the company photos. For the first time, Grace heard the human cost of her empire, and the guilt hit her like the storm waves outside. The challenge that followed was harder than any burst pipe. Grace had to face the board. She had to admit publicly that the cutthroat culture she'd built was starving souls, including her own. Nathan's challenge was trust. Could he believe this powerful woman would actually change, or was last night just rich person therapy? They argued in the weeks that followed, Grace offering him a promotion he didn't want, Nathan refusing unless it came with real dignity for every maintenance worker in the company. But every argument ended the same way, on their knees, cleaning something together, reminding each other that humility wasn't weakness, it was the bridge back to being human. Then came the resolution that changed everything. 6 months later, Grace did the unthinkable. She sold half her holdings, not for profit, but to buy back her father's old diner building. She reopened it as Whitaker's Second Chance, a place where executives and janitors ate side by side, where stories were swapped over sweet tea, and where Nathan became co-manager, his daughter getting free braces and a front-row seat to her father's quiet triumph. The company culture shifted too. No more fear-based leadership. Grace started made nights, once a quarter, executives trading suits for aprons, learning that the floor looks different when you're the one scrubbing it. Nathan stood beside her at the diner's grand reopening, watching Grace laugh with old dock workers she'd once ignored. Tears pricked his eyes as he realized the woman who once made him lose control had given him back something he thought he'd lost forever, hope that kindness could still win. And here we are, friend, at the end of this journey we started together in the rain. Nathan and Grace didn't just fix a pipe that night, they mended two shattered hearts and reminded the whole world that behind every title, every success story, every "I've got it all together" mask, beats a simple human heart begging to be seen, to be treated kindly, to be reminded that we're all just people trying to keep the floor clean. The next time life hands you power, or strips it away, remember this: the most powerful thing you can ever say is, "Let me help you scrub." Because one small act of understanding doesn't just change a night. It changes lifetimes. It changes legacies. It changes you. So tell me, if your boss said those words tomorrow, what would you do now? I hope you choose kindness. I hope you lose control, in the best possible way. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. Your heart just made this story real. Now go make it real for someone else.